enter. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Purposeful Conversations with me, Emee, here in the PAMI Code Facebook community. And for today's conversation, we have a meditation instructor and antenatal teacher who's passionate about how we can use meditation and mindfulness to support creativity, clarity, and focus for children and adults. I know that during the pandemic, it's so easy to just feel very stressed, to experience fear, anxiety, and certainly meditation and mindfulness can help us to calm down, especially for the children, for them trying to make sense with what's going on. So without further ado, let's all welcome Emee Snape. Hi, Emma.
Hi, Emee. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. And I would love to talk all things meditation and how it can help parents and children, especially in these times. But before we get into that, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and how you got into into what you do now.
Okay, so I was a primary school teacher. I did that for 14 years. And before that, I did my degree in psychology, very interested in the workings of the human mind, but I decided that I wanted to be, at the time, I wanted to be an educational psychologist. And when I was training, before you could go and train, you had to be a primary school teacher for 2 years before you could go off and do that. So I went into primary school teaching, and during that time I met my husband and I fell pregnant. And so you know how life just sort of
just changes, priorities shift.
Yeah, so the psychology sort of stuff got pushed to one side, and I stayed in my teaching career for a little while longer. When I fell pregnant with my second child, who's now 7, so my eldest is 12, my youngest is 7, I decided that I wasn't really passionate about being in the classroom anymore. I loved being in the classroom with the children, but teaching has so many other things around it, and it became more about the assessment and the paperwork and the admin side, and I didn't feel I felt like almost like the teaching children was getting in the way of doing all of that, which isn't the way that I wanted my role to be. And having 2 young children at home as well, it became, teaching was always, when I first started it always seemed like a family friendly occupation. But over the years, it's quickly become less and less so. And so I decided...
It became like an admin position.
It really does. I think I spent more of my time marking and assessing and filling in forms than I did actually being in the classroom with the children. It felt that's the way it felt like it was going. And so I decided that life was too short to stay in a job that I no longer felt passionate about. And being pregnant at the time, I've always been interested in yoga and that holistic side. And I trained to teach antenatal classes and baby classes. And so I spent the last 8 years also working with mums and their birth partners, supporting them, educating them about their bodies in pregnancy and in labour, how to work with the body. And a lot of that was based around mindfulness and mindset. And so it seemed very, very easy to step into the role of meditation. So at the time I was still trying to teach. I was still part-time primary school teacher, and I was running my own business, and it all became quite a lot, as you can imagine.
And then you had to choose.
Yeah, and it became I wanted something more, I wanted something different, and just at that time Exhale just presented itself. And I took a bit of a leap of faith. I had never been to a class. I didn't really know what the structure of the class was. I had a conversation with Charlotte, who's the founder, and just decided that it sounded like it was for me. And I trained, and I've spent the last 2 years doing a lot of inner work. Obviously, the last year we've been stuck inside, so it meant that I wasn't able to deliver classes in the way that I always have, so that face-to-face, that building that community. Wasn't able to do that anymore, and it's given me the opportunity to do a lot of work on myself as well, which means that meditation is sort of it's really been my gateway, if you like. It became the thing that helped me to shift a lot of my own blocks. And yeah, so I like sharing it.
What the journey, because I have to say I can relate to most of what you've said, coming from an education psychology as well. My background is in psychology, ended up actually going into the teaching route, but more in the higher education. But like what you've said, I do love teaching. I do love the interaction with the students, the research and all that. But it's really the admin and the bureaucracy that's sort of getting in the way of what you're really passionate about, and making that choice of taking that leap of faith, as you've said, following your purpose, following your passion, and life will just guide you. And as you've said, for you, exhale just presented itself to you, and for me, all the opportunities that came after I left academia, they just presented themselves. And it's just magical, it's just wonderful. And here you are now, you are a meditation instructor, and you're teaching adults and children, and particularly what pregnant women and their partners, how to meditate and do yoga. And is that something to do with mindfulness and mindful birthing? Is that what you call it? What do you call that?
So I guess we would call it active birthing. So it's rather than I suppose, rather than taking the viewpoint that you'll go into hospital and be told what to do, it's about taking an active role in your birth. So I'm a big advocate for positive birth, but from the perspective that it's your informed choice. So as opposed to it being a birth where you don't take the option of pain relief, or you don't opt for a C-section, I think that a positive birth is something that is where you've been educated, you understand labour, you understand birth, and then and so that is a big, mindset is a massive part of it, because it is a lot of trust in the body, and listening to your own body, which I think as a culture we're not used to doing. And so yeah, it's a lot of work on people's mindset. So we do spend, whilst the premise of the weekly classes that I would teach would be yoga, there's a part in there, the end segment is always based around mindset and affirmations and looking at birth and normalizing birth. And then in the workshops, and when I work with couples and women and their birth partners, and just educating them about what their choices are, and again just looking at our mindset and looking at what we already think about birth, and where that's come from, and what those ideas are, and then challenging anything that doesn't fit. So yeah, that's a big part of it.
I have to say, Emma, just looking at what you do and how you work with your clients, with your students, it's going through from pregnancy, childbirth, and then you also work with the children and the parents. In terms of your work with the children and the parents, what is it exactly that you help them with, and what sort of issues do they struggle with, and how meditation helps them with that?
So the meditation part, we would begin, well, we can start at age 2. And you would think that, from children's perspective, a lot of parents are, well, my child won't sit still. There's no way they're going to do any meditation, because we have this idea in our heads of what meditation should look like. And again, it's challenging that mindset and that idea that meditation has to be sitting quietly in an upright position for hours on end and having no thoughts whatsoever. And so in terms of working with children, it's about taking them on an adventure. So we use their imagination, and we give them, I suppose it's a little bit like when you teach them maths, it's giving them something concrete to relate to. So we look at using the body and movement in the body and opening the body, but we do it in a way that uses their imagination. So we become a Tyrannosaurus Rex that's stomping around, and we talk about tensing the body and the difference between holding tension and then relaxation. So for example, we might go to the beach and we might screw on the cap of our sun cream, and again we discuss the tension and the release, and it helps children to understand that difference between those two sorts of states.
It's just being aware of your body. That's really what mindfulness is, being mindful
Absolutely.
of you in your body and how your body feels.
Yeah, exactly. And so from very young age, we can talk about how the body feels in different states and how we can influence that. And we can use the breath, and we use a lot of song and a lot of rhyme, and that also helps. And I recently went back to teaching face-to-face classes with my meditation, and I had one little girl come, and she sat to the side and didn't really join in too much. We've had a year of lockdown, so unsurprisingly, children, they're going to be a little bit cautious, a little bit standoffish. And I know later on, the mum actually sent me a video of her little girl doing the actions and the breath work. She's 3, and she had picked up, just from one 20-minute session, she had picked up a way of working with her breath at a time that suited her. And I've got other clients whose little ones who do the same. So at night time, one of my clients, her little girl, she does the songs and the breathing that we teach in our younger classes, and uses that to help her to calm down before she goes to bed. So we can give these children, these tools to be able to utilize at a time that suits them.
It's fantastic that this is actually something that young children at a very young age, very early stage in their development, it's embedded in their awareness. Is this now being introduced in schools? I'm not really sure if that's what's going on in the UK now.
Yeah, so mindfulness has, and certainly looking at the emotional and mental health of children has become quite a focus for Ofsted. So in their 2019 report that they put out for what they are looking for in schools, mindfulness and mental health had quite a large section in there. So it's certainly something that schools are looking for. And I know myself, before I trained, there were things that we would do and we would bring in, and that there's many a thing that you can access on, put up on your whiteboard and get the children to do. But it's also a huge part of the PSHE, and talking about their emotions, their well-being, and their mental health as well, and ways that children can do that. So yeah, it's certainly something that is growing in pace through schools at the moment.
Yes, it's fantastic because it's not really just focusing on the logic and the mathematics and the literacy, but also becoming aware of your emotional intelligence and mindfulness in your body. I think it's a really great step forward, and it's not just so focused on the usual quote unquote academic stuff, because you're teaching them life lessons. And I suppose there are some mental health issues that adults experience now, that they weren't really given the opportunity to explore these emotions as young people. So starting at an early age, I think it's the best way to manage this.
Yeah, I always say that having issues that I had as a child and growing up, and I think if I'd understood this stuff, if you like, and I knew about this, then I think I could have managed that in a much better way than I did as a teenager. It's rather than focusing on harmful behaviours and things that would, and self-limiting beliefs, and it's taken me, I'm 40 in a couple of weeks, and it's taken me however many years to get over those things that happened to me as a child. And I think if I'd had some of these skills and some of this understanding, I could have moved through that in a different way.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
you have the tools now. It's actually being quite creative in terms of how you introduce this to children and embedding it in their routine, just being mindful of the breathing, and it's absolutely wonderful.
And just something as simple as going on a walk and being mindful and talking to your child and stop it. We're always in a hurry. And I remember, I had one child at school, and my youngest was still very little, so she was at home with me. And I remember dropping my older one off at school, and even just the walk from school back to the car, she would stop at cracks in the pavement or berries on the tree, and she would want to take it all in. And as parents, we're so quick to sort of come on, we've always got to be somewhere else. But if we can find those opportunities to help children to just and take the lead from them. And when they are, children are very mindful. If you watch a child play, they become so focused on what they are doing that nothing else matters. It doesn't matter how many times you've told them that they need to put their shoes on. If they're focused on something, we can take a lot from that, I think. We're so very quick to rush through life, and we don't appreciate the mindful moments that happen just incidentally in our day anyway.
Ah, so fascinating. So, Emma, if you have any tips that you can give to parents who are watching this right now, maybe they want to introduce mindfulness and meditation in their family, where can they start?
So I always say that you can try and tell children to do something, and something is good for them. And I've seen this with my own children. So as I say, I've got a 12-year-old and a 7-year-old. And I could say to them until the cows come home, meditation is good for you, meditate. I could try. But one, I do it, so it's not cool. Because, if your own mother's doing it, it cannot be something that's cool, can it? But I would always say that actually, children watch us, and they model, we model behavior, and they take on from us so much. And so I always say to parents, to adults, it starts with you. Because if you are looking after yourself, if you are taking part in those practices, your child will see that. And from my own children's perspectives, I've got videos of my 7-year-old standing by a stream, watching the stream, and just doing the thing.
Immersed,
And
yeah.
I didn't make her do that. It was just she just stood there by a stream. She just decided to just take a moment, and she stood there for a good minute or two.
Oh,
And then
lovely.
I know, my 12-year-old, she was struggling to sleep, especially when we went into lockdown. She found it very difficult. She was in year 6, and for her that meant she was missing out on, even though the exams at the end of year 6, so the SATs test, can be quite stressful for children. She actually, it is almost a rite of passage for them, and she struggled with not seeing her friends. She struggled with not doing that part. She struggled with not going to prom. And she found it very difficult being stuck in the house, and as we all have. And she was really struggling to sleep, and she did have a few panic attacks. And I did guide her through those, and we did some breath work, and I just sat with her and I just breathed. And we can take a lot from that. It took her a while to take it on board and to start following what I was doing, but eventually she could see that this was going to have an impact, and she did eventually start to gain control of herself. And I know now I sometimes catch her listening to a meditation to go to sleep at night.
Oh, without
She's
you telling, yeah.
I sometimes she'll say, Alexa, play meditation, and play sleep meditation. And I do find her, if she's struggling to sleep, so she accesses that. And I think in part that's because she's seen me do it, even though I've not tried to force it on them, and I've not said you must do this and you must do that. They've just sort of watched those little bits, and children will take that on board, and they'll use it at a time that's right for them. And they might not show you that they're doing it, because
They are watching, and they
yeah,
will model. Even
and
if
I think
you try to deny it, you
yeah,
will see that they are
yeah,
modeling after the people around them. So if you want to introduce this in the family, then you have to show
Yeah.
that you do it yourself, that you
I
practice it yourself.
definitely think that is you become the barometer. I know from my own experience, if I'm having a difficult day, you can almost feel it in the house, and it does impact the way the way you're carrying yourself. It does impact everybody else. So the way that you're breathing and the way that you're feeling, the way that you respond, it all impacts on everybody else. And so if we can start with ourselves, and if we can bring that sort of practice to ourselves, for starters, that's going to help us come from a more compassionate place. So, meditation, when you go into meditation's amazing for boosting your oxytocin production, that hormone of love, which is a massive thing for pregnancy and labour. But also, just in general, it's a healing hormone, and it will go and it will heal the damage that stress has done to our bodies. But also, it helps you to come from a more nurturing place. And that in turn means that you can be more responsive, and the way that you respond can be from a much more loving and accepting place than you might do ordinarily. And so I think if we can start there, if we can start with us, then we can set the scene, if you like. We can set that out for people, within our close family, and then we can either guide them in one direction, or how, if we're modeling it, they will be taking that on anyway. So I think certainly for an adult, certainly start with yourself.
Fantastic. What a wonderful message. So for those of you who are listening to this, if you are parents and you have children who you want to introduce meditation in your home, start with yourself, and you can see that it will ripple eventually. So Emma, if you have any if people want to reach out and get in touch with you, where can they find you?
So you can find me on Instagram. I am under Exhale with Emma. I'm also on Facebook, or you can go to the mainexhale.org website, and you'll find numerous instructors there that are up and down the country, that can, are offering classes online and hopefully coming back face to face. So if you are in the UK, and we're up in Scotland now as well, and I think we now have somebody who's training, who's in Wales as well. So we are sort of starting to fill the country. But yeah, so certainly online, it's very easy to access. The majority of the instructors are now running online classes as well. So we work with children, we work with adults, we work with workplaces, schools. There's a plethora of ways that you can work with us.
Wonderful. Well, I will leave the link in the description. So if any of you are interested, you can find them in the description here. So Emma, thank you very much for joining us today. And everyone, thank you for tuning in. I hope that you found this conversation helpful. And we'll catch up again next time for another purposeful conversations with me, Emee, here in the PAMI Code Facebook group. Until then, take care everyone, and bye for now. Bye.
Bye.